Last year, we saw the release of Cyber Strike, a structure deck that would not only give us a Cyber Dragon core, but would also give us new Cyberdark cards to bolster the strategies of the Cyberdark archetype. Now, Albaz Strike has released, bringing a very nice splashable fusion toolbox to the game. What we're going to do now is take 3 Albaz Strike and 3 Cyber Strike structure decks and combine them into one. So starting off, we've got one of each of the main Cyberdarks. So we've got one Horn, Edge, and Keel. So these are obviously these are your dedicated like attackers of the deck, really, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be equipping your cannon or claw, mainly claw in this deck, to them to punch something, and then you get your cannon or claw effect off during the damage step. During damage calculation, I think it is actually. But yeah, so and then we've got 3 cannons. So this is the monster searcher of the deck. So this will search any of your OG Cyberdarks. And when it's equipped and it is sent to the graveyard, it gets you a draw. During damage calc, it sends if the equipped monster attacks, it sends a monster from deck to graveyard. So it's just a foolish burial basically. And then we got Cyberdark Claw at 3 copies. So this is your spell and trap card searcher. Cyber Strike gave us Realm, Invasion, and Horizon. We're not running Horizon, but we are running Realm and Invasion, and those 2 are brilliant cards for this deck. It also is a foolish burial from the extra deck during damage calc. So that really helps, as I said earlier, to get a little bit of advantage out of Albion and out of Titanic Lad. So yeah. Then we've got 3 Cyber Dragon Core. This is a dedicated normal summon basically, because you can search Realm off of this. So Core into Realm into Cannon gets you into a Cyberdark monster is pretty nice for like deck flow wise. So yeah, it really makes sense to run 3 core as a dedicated normal summon. Then we've got 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz, because obviously we need this to make any of these fusions basically. It is also like a walking super poly, so you except your opponent can respond to it, but it can come up occasionally, but most of the time you'll just be dumping this into the graveyard with branded fusion. And then lastly, for the regular monsters before hand traps, we're playing 1 copy of Gizmek Orochi, because you can dump this into the graveyard with your cannon and then summon it, push for game. You only really want to dump this when you're about to push for game. Usually in decks that aren't constrained by budget, so obviously these are 3 Albaz Strike and 3 Cyber Strike put together, but in Cyberdark variants, optimally, you would also run an Eldritch the Golden Lord, because that can, when you're not going for game, you can get a draw off of cannon, and also then you have 2 monsters for link fodder to make a link 2 like IP Masquerena or Verte Anaconda to make DPE or something. So, but yeah, unfortunately and unsurprisingly, none of the structure decks have Golden Lord in it, so we've only got Orochi to deal with, to contend with. But that's fine for this. Like, it doesn't come up all the time, but it's nice to have. Then we've got some hand traps in the form of our 3 Ghost Ogre and our 3 Veiler. So obviously this is all we really have to work with: the 3 Veiler, 3 Ogre, 3 Imperm. But I think that's enough. That is a lot more than most budget builds would have. That's for sure. So yeah, they're nice. They're lights as well, so you can send these off of branded to the graveyard with branded fusion, or you can send core. It doesn't really matter either way. You may notice, obviously, that's the end of the monsters. I'm not running things like Cyber Dragon Hertz or Cyber Dragon itself. I thought about it. I didn't really feel like the space to allocate for them was necessary, so I chose not to run them at all. I don't think it matters though. The advantage generated off of those in this kind of deck format is very inconsequential and minuscule. In a deck that wasn't constrained to like 3 of each structure deck, then maybe it would be more worth it. But you would also have things like Eldritch the Golden Lord to also run in the place, which generates more advantage off of Cyberdarks, which is overall better for a Cyberdark strategy. But yeah, so that rounds out the monsters. Moving on to the spells, it's pretty simple. It's mostly search spells because Konami chose to give us loads of them. So 3 copies of Cyber Emergency to start Search Core, which obviously searches your realm, gets you going. Then, speaking of realm, 3 realm, because this card is just really, really good. It's a Tenki and a Tensu all in one. The effect to equip from your opponent's graveyard can come up. It might come up more now that Branded is out and in the meta, but it probably won't. Mainly because none of them are level 3 or lower, which these guys need. But yeah, I'm also running 1 copy of Cyberdark Inferno. So here, this card is really good for momentum because obviously you've got Invasion, which can send equips to the graveyard to pop opponents' cards, and then you'll find that your Cyberdarks your monsters have no equips left. So Cyberdark Inferno is a really nice one-off to kind of just bounce it back, reset it, get the re-equip again, and then also give it its little protection of its battle protection. And also, while it has an equip to it, it can also not be targeted thanks to Inferno as well. Also, if the opponent is stupid enough to destroy this with a card effect, you get to search Branded Fusion, so that's pretty good as well. So speaking of Branded Fusion, we're running 3 Branded Fusion as well because this card is just nuts. It gets you to your Mirror Jade, which is one of your lines of disruption in this deck, which is really, really useful. Obviously, we're not focusing quite so much on actually being on the deck fusion. Like, there's not much really that Cyberdarks can abuse in this kind of build, from deck to graveyard right now. You can obviously sending a dark. If you send a dark to the graveyard, you can obviously send your Gizmek Orochi, or you can send one of your dragon searchers to the graveyard. But realistically, you want to draw those so that you can get the most out of their search effects. So we don't really care. We're not really too bothered about actually fusing from deck in this kind of build. But the real end game here is Mirror Jade, because the Mirror Jade disruption is very strong. Now here's a really good reprint that actually goes a long way in this deck in particular. Not in Cyber Dragons, but in this deck. 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This is a definitely welcome reprint. It's a very good draw card for this kind of deck. We're going for a more control strategy. And we're running 3 of everything important in the extra deck, so 3 Extravagance kind of makes sense. Especially since Cyberdarks, despite all the searches, sometimes need some draw power to get started. So this is a really welcome addition, in my opinion. Then lastly for the spells, 1 Call by the Grave, because hand traps, we kind of don't like being hand trapped. No one does. So 1 Call by the Grave, it's there, it works nicely. Then for the traps, it's very, very small. We have 2 copies of Cyberdark Invasion. I love this card so much. It is such a welcome addition to Cyberdarks as a whole. Really good disruption. You get to re-equip things from the graveyard. And you can also pop things, non-targeting by the way, and in the process get your cannon and claw effects to generate a little bit more advantage. So I absolutely love this card. I've been a very big advocate of running it. If you've known me in the Cyberdark server, I've been a very big advocate of running this card at all times. I much prefer running this in a kind of control-y build to a fusion-y build. So yeah, great card overall. And then obviously our last 3 hand traps, Infinite Impermanence, because why would you not run this? It's a great card. But yeah, so that rounds out the main deck. Then lastly for the extra deck, we are running 3 copies of basically everything we need. So 3 copies of Mirror Jade, 3 copies of Lubellion, and 3 copies of Albion. These are our main these are the main things, mainly Albion as well, because it doesn't require a discard like Lubellion does to summon Mirror Jade out. But yeah, these are basically, these are the things we're going for mostly. We're also running 3 copies of Titaniclad because we can dump this out with Cyberdark Claw to get to summon out an Albaz during the end phase. It's also a dragon, so we can re-equip it from the graveyard with Invasion, just like our 2 copies of Sprind. I could run a 3rd copy of Sprind, or because I'm running a 3rd copy of Brigand. It really doesn't matter because you're not actually going to be summoning these 6 cards out at all. They are here mainly because you can dump them out with Cyberdark Claw, and also because Pot of Extravagance kind of demands that you run a full extra deck and 3 of everything you don't want to lose. You don't really mind losing these 6 cards here. It could be a third Sprind instead. They do have different effects, and they might occasionally come up, but they won't. Alright guys, so that brings me to the end of the profile. I do plan on doing a full Cyberdark deck without the restriction of only being 3 structure decks in the future. I was going to do one the last time as well, but I was just not happy with the fusion build as a whole, and other versions of Cyberdarks hadn't been fully explored yet, so I kind of just sat on it and never actually uploaded a build. But yeah, if I do plan on doing a full kind of branded Cyberdark build without kind of structure deck restrictions, so stay tuned for that. I'm also planning on doing a full Cyber Dragon branded build as well very, very soon, so stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.